The White House. On a dim autumn evening, cold wind blew in from the river behind the village, soaking the moss-covered wooden walls of the old Trun family house. Decades ago, it had been a shelter for war refugees, then a grain storehouse, and eventually left abandoned. Locals called it the White House, not for its faded paint, but for the eerie crying that echoed from it on moonless nights. The cries were like broken breaths, sometimes near, sometimes far, seeping into the ears of anyone listening before vanishing into an overwhelming silence. No one dared approach the house, except the occasional group of children betting each other to sneak in at dusk to steal a jackfruit before fleeing in terror as the sun dipped behind the bamboo. But Hung, a young archaeology student on internship at the Provincial Museum, found herself drawn to the place. She had stumbled upon an old record mentioning, "Inside the White House lies ceramic artifacts from the 19th century and a bronze mirror engraved with Sanskrit." That Friday afternoon, Hung and her older brother Tuan, a painter, biked to the site. The gate creaked as they pushed it open, hinges rusted and groaning like an old man in pain. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the sour scent of bat droppings. Spiderwebs stretched from beams to door frames. Hung flicked on a flashlight. The beam cut through the dusty air like a tunnel of swirling spirits. They made their way past decaying crates to the innermost chamber, marked on the old blueprint as the storage room. The stone walls were damp, and at the center of the room sat a stone table and a locked iron chest. Tuan shook the lock, but it wouldn't budge. Annoyed, he kicked the chest. The metal clanged, echoing long and far. Then came a scraping noise above, as if something long was dragging across the ceiling. They froze. A black shadow slithered slowly across the beam, long like a body being dragged, silent except for the scrape of fingernails on wood. Hung gripped Tuan's arm. "Let's leave." But curiosity won. In that moment, the lock clicked open by itself. The lid of the chest creaked ajar, inviting. Inside wasn't ceramic, but a single bronze mirror, its surface green with oxidation. The glass was foggy, swirling faintly like smoke. Along the edges were strange engravings, 12 eyes etched wide open around the rim. Tuan shone the flashlight on it. The mirror glowed suddenly with a white flash, letting out a high-pitched shriek. Darkness fell instantly. A frigid gust licked the back of their necks. In the mirror, they didn't see themselves, but a red-tiled hallway, dimly lit by oil lamps, lined with stretchers covered by white sheets. Tuan moved, but the reflection remained still, fixed, unmoving. One of the sheets stirred. The shape beneath it twisted, releasing a soft, inhuman groan. Then the sheet flipped back. A woman's face, greenish-blue with bulging white eyes and a mouth torn to the ears, snapped upright, crawling backward on her back toward them. Her nails screeched across the tiles, leaving streaks of dark red. Hung screamed, trying to drop the mirror, but her hands were stuck fast. Tuan yanked it away. Both fell back, and the mirror shattered. Shards scattered across the floor, yet the crying continued, now echoing from the broken pieces. Panicked, they grabbed their bags and ran, but the hallway had become endless. The walls now lined with tiny doors, each creaking open. Pale eyes peeked out and vanished. The floor turned soft, sucking at their feet like mud. Behind them came the sound of dragging chains and a wet, gasping breath from something that shouldn't have lungs. Tuan threw the flashlight over his shoulder. The light caught it, a hairless, elongated body with overlapping eyes and a torn mouth. It hissed, "Return." They shrieked and scrambled up the attic ladder. The trapdoor stuck. Hung fumbled with the latch while the thing below sniffed, creeping up the steps. The door finally cracked open, and they tumbled inside, slamming it shut behind them. The attic was nearly empty, save for an old altar cabinet. On top were 3 faded portraits: an old man, a woman, and a child. The incense bowl was cold and long unused. But as Hung approached, the sticks suddenly lit, smoke curling up in tight spirals. Suddenly, the attic shifted. She was no longer in the house, but in a bloody birthing room. A woman lay on a cot, pale and trembling, while a doctor in a bloodied coat delivered a baby that did not cry. Its skin was gray. The woman sobbed, cradling the lifeless child, whispering its name, "Linny." The doctor shook his head, wrapped the baby, and took it away. The mother screamed and hung herself soon after. Since that day, her spirit wandered the White House, searching for her lost child. The vision faded. The altar returned, But the woman's portrait began to melt, her face dripping down in black ooze, which slithered off the frame, landing with a splurt. It reared up, a featureless face with hollow eye sockets and a gaping void for a mouth. Tun stumbled backward. The ceiling cracked. Dozens of pale hands reached down, grasping, pulling. The attic tilted, space warped. Hung clung to her brother. But when she turned, he was gone. In his place floated a new mirror, whole and bright, suspended in the air. Inside, Tun was bound to a stretcher, eyes wide, mouth silently screaming. Beside him stood the doctor, holding a drill, teeth clenched tight. Hung shouted, "Let him go!" But no sound came out. The mirror trembled faintly. A child's voice whispered, "Return me to my mother. I'll return him to you." Hung knelt, tears streaming. She remembered the Sanskrit word at the mirror's edge, reincarnation. The only way to break the curse was to lay the child's spirit to rest. She rummaged through her backpack and found a tiny bronze rattle, an ancient artifact once used for newborns. She shook it. Its chime was soft and clear, ringing like a bell to call wandering souls. The floor split beneath her, revealing a black pool. From it rose the shriveled body of an infant, wrapped in wet cloth, eyes closed. Hung wept, cradling the cold bundle. She hummed a lullaby. The black water receded. The baby's skin pinked, its eyes fluttered open. It smiled and touched her cheek, then dissolved into sparkling mist, merging with the woman's portrait on the altar. The crying stopped. A soft glow filled the attic. The ceiling calmed. The mirror vanished. Tuan reappeared, unconscious but unharmed. Hung shook him awake. He blinked, dazed. Outside, moonlight bathed the garden. They limped down the stairs, now normal in length, and crossed the threshold. As the gate closed behind them, a gentle wind nudged the door, which let out a soft lullaby-like creak. Hung bowed. "May you rest in peace." Deep inside the shadows, 3 incense sticks lit up, flared bright, then faded, leaving only the faint, holy scent of sandalwood. A year later, a team from the museum excavated the White House. They found the bronze mirror again, intact, as if untouched. The Sanskrit carvings were freshly visible, unaged, yet the cries never returned. On full moons, only a gentle scent lingered in the garden. Hung visited the house once more, now fenced and silent. She listened to the wind brushing the banana trees and knew, some pains buried for generations simply want to be heard. When someone listens, the dead find rest. Locals say they now see a woman holding a child under the eaves, singing lullabies so sweet they cool the very air. Children play near the house, picking fruit and laughing. Sometimes, they say, you can hear a giggle from nowhere, as if death never touched this place. Or perhaps, love had finally driven it away. And Hung? Every now and then, she still feels a tiny hand brush her cheek, reminding her of the thin veil between worlds, and that those who weep for others will always find their way home. Room 206. When Lynn first moved to Saigon for university, she wasn't expecting luxury. All she wanted was a place cheap enough to fit her modest budget, but far enough from the chaos of central traffic. That's how she ended up in room 206 of an old boarding house on a narrow, vine-covered alley in District 8. The house had 4 floors and 6 rooms, with room 206 located at the far end of the second-floor corridor. It had no balcony, just a single narrow window looking out to the neighbor's crumbling brick wall. The walls inside were yellowing, speckled with damp patches, and the air was perpetually musty, even after Lynn spent hours airing it out. But she didn't mind. She had her books, her laptop, and her little altar with a porcelain Buddha for comfort. The landlady, Miss Han, was an elderly woman with a limp and a disapproving frown, but she left Ling alone for the most part. Her first night passed uneventfully. The second night, though, she woke around 3:11 a.m., shivering. She reached for the fan remote, only to realize the fan had already been turned off. The room felt unusually cold. She turned over and was about to fall back asleep when she heard a sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the ceiling. Lynn lay still, holding her breath. The tapping continued, rhythmic but slow, like long fingernails rapping wood. Maybe a rat, she told herself. The tapping stopped. Just as she was calming down, the light in her bathroom flickered. Once, twice. Then it went out completely. Must be loose wiring, she muttered and pulled the blanket tighter. At exactly 3:11 a.m. the next night, she woke up again. This time, she felt watched. The air was thick, almost suffocating. The tapping returned, this time louder, closer. Lynn sat up in bed and turned on her phone flashlight, shining it toward the ceiling. Nothing. But when she turned the light toward the bathroom door, her heart dropped. The door was wide open. She remembered clearly closing it before sleeping. Inside, in the mirror above the sink, there was something moving. She got up slowly, barefoot on the cold tile floor, and walked toward the bathroom. Her light flickered as she approached. In the mirror, she saw her own reflection, but behind her, standing near her bed, was the silhouette of a woman. Lynn spun around. Nothing. When she turned back to the mirror, the woman was gone. Her reflection smiled, but she wasn't smiling. Lynn stumbled back, heart racing, and slammed the bathroom door shut. She didn't sleep again that night. The next day, she asked Miss Hunt, the landlady, about the room. "Was there someone living here before me?" The old woman frowned deeper. "Why do you ask?" I feel like someone's still here." Miss Hunt sighed and sat down slowly. "You students always ask, but you never listen." She lowered her voice. "There was a girl, lived in 206 about 2 years ago. Pretty, quiet, kept to herself. She was a dancer, used to practice at night, music low, footsteps soft. One day she just disappeared. Didn't tell anyone. Left her things. I opened the room after 3 days. Found her slippers in the middle of the floor. No sign of her." Lynn swallowed. "And the mirror?" The landlady looked up sharply. "You saw the mirror?" Lynn nodded slowly. "You should leave it covered," she whispered. "Always." Lynn returned to room 206 with a roll of old newspaper and masking tape. She covered the mirror, muttering a prayer. That night, she placed salt at the door, a bowl of water under the bed, and lit an incense stick for her altar. Still, at 3:11 a.m., the mirror thudded behind the paper. Thump, thump, thump! The paper rustled. The tape began to peel. Lynn watched in horror as the corner of the paper lifted and curled, revealing the bottom edge of the mirror. A pale fingertip slowly slid out from the glass. She screamed. The landlady rushed upstairs and found Lynn trembling in the hallway, eyes wild. "I'm done," Lynn gasped. "I'm leaving." "Come," the old woman said grimly. "I'll show you something." She led Lynn to a small locked cabinet in the back of the house, rummaged for a dusty photo album, and flipped it open. This was her. A photo of the girl from room 206. Her face calm, lips closed, but eyes sad and distant. On the next page, a police flyer. Missing, Winthau V, age 19. "She practiced in front of that mirror every night," Miss Hatton whispered. "Said it helped her. Until one night, she danced too long, too late, and she didn't come out." "Didn't come out?" Lynn echoed. "She danced into it, into the mirror." Lynn stared at the landlady, not knowing whether to believe her or not. That night, Lynn didn't sleep. She sat in bed, watching the mirror. The paper had fallen off again. At exactly 3:11 a.m., the room grew freezing. The mirror surface rippled. And then she stepped out, the girl from the photograph. Only now, her eyes were completely black. Her limbs moved like they were floating in water, jerking and swaying. Her head tilted too far to one side, hair clinging to her wet face. Her feet were bare. Blood trickled from her toes as she stepped silently toward Lynn. Lynn couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The ghost girl raised a hand and pointed to the floor in front of the mirror. A pair of slippers, Lynn's, sat there neatly, just like in the story. The ghost girl opened her mouth wide, wider, until her jaw cracked. And from within came the sound of music, soft, sad, haunting. Then she whispered, "Dance with me?" Lynn shut her eyes and screamed. When she woke, it was morning. The mirror was intact, the paper still taped, her slippers beside the bed. Nothing seemed disturbed. No blood, no music. She packed her things in 30 minutes. Before leaving, she asked Miss Hunt one last question. "Why haven't you removed the mirror?" The old woman gave a tired smile. "Would you know where to put it?" 2 weeks later, a new tenant moved into room 206, and at 3:11 a.m., the music began again. The elevator doesn't stop on 6. When Min checked into the Old Orchard Hotel, it was already close to midnight. He had been traveling for over 12 hours, and all he wanted was a shower and some sleep. The receptionist, a young woman with unnaturally pale skin and an overly rehearsed smile, handed him the room key and said softly, "Room 607, elevators at the end. Don't press 6. Min blinked. "Excuse me?" She repeated slower. "Don't press 6. Go straight to 7. Have a good night." Too tired to argue, Min took his keycard and wheeled his suitcase toward the elevator. The lobby was old, with marble tiles faded to yellow, and a giant mirror above a fireplace that reflected the light with a murky glow. The elevator doors were brass, etched with vines. When they opened with a groan, Min stepped in alone and pressed 7. Out of curiosity, he hovered his finger over 6. The button looked dusty, as if untouched for years. What could happen, he thought. He pressed it. The elevator shuddered violently. The lights inside flickered, then turned red. The music, classical elevator tunes, slowed into a distorted moan. Then the doors opened. It wasn't the 6th floor he expected. The hallway beyond was completely dark. No lights, no movement, just a faint smell. Rotting flowers and wet concrete. Min hesitated, foot half out. He leaned slightly, peering into the corridor. There were rooms, yes, 601 to 610. But the doors were open. All of them. Every single one. And in each room, something was standing still. Statues? People? He couldn't tell. They were too still. The elevator groaned. Without touching anything, the doors closed slowly in front of him and continued up to floor 7. When he stepped into room 6-7, he immediately locked the door and pulled the curtain closed. Something about that 6th floor had chilled him. His hands trembled slightly as he unpacked. Just as he was about to lie down, he heard a noise. Ding. The elevator. He frowned. Maybe another guest? But then, ding, ding, ding. It kept ringing, floor by floor, 9, 8, 7. The hallway outside went dead quiet. Then came the softest knock at his door. Knock, knock, room service, came a woman's voice. But it was wrong, hollow, like someone mimicking a voice they didn't understand. I didn't order anything, Min said, backing away. Silence. Then the doorknob turned. Not violently, but calmly, slowly, like someone trying to be polite. Room service, the voice repeated, this time more desperate and slightly angrier. Min stood frozen. After a few seconds, the door shook once, just one quick jolt, as if someone had hit it with their forehead. Then came the sound of bare feet slapping softly against the floor as the presence moved away. The rest of the night passed without sleep. In the morning, Min went back to the lobby. The receptionist from the night before was gone. A different man stood behind the desk. Min hesitated, then asked, "What's on the 6th floor?" The man's expression darkened immediately. "No guests are assigned to that floor. Elevator skips it." "I stopped there," Min confessed. The man leaned forward, whispering, "You saw them, didn't you?" "Who?" "Those who never left. There was a fire in 1986. A group of guests refused to evacuate, said someone was knocking on their doors. All 10 died in their rooms." Min felt the blood drain from his face. They say at night, the elevator sometimes remembers them, brings visitors there. They try to check out through others. He handed Min a small envelope with no expression. "If you value your life, leave before nightfall. Room 607 has a mirror. Cover it, and do not answer if someone knocks again." Min returned upstairs, shaken. He covered the mirror with a bedsheet and packed quickly. But just as he was zipping his suitcase, ding, the elevator again. It stopped on 7. He backed into the corner. Knock, knock. Room service. The voice was closer, right at the door now, followed by a slow dragging sound, like someone pulling something heavy. Then it stopped. Silence. Min leaned forward, held his breath, and peeked through the peephole. No one was there. He sighed in relief. But when he turned around, the mirror was uncovered. The sheet lay crumpled on the floor, and in the reflection stood a woman in a burnt red dress, skin charred black, one eye missing, the other wide open and staring straight at him. Her mouth opened impossibly wide. "Check out!" she shrieked. The lights exploded. The room filled with ash. Min screamed and backed into the wall, clawing at the mirror to tear it down. Everything went black. When Min woke, it was morning again. The mirror was gone. His suitcase was packed. The door was wide open. Down in the lobby, the receptionist handed him a note. It read, "You stayed one night too many." He turned to ask her what that meant, but there was no one behind the desk, only a cracked mirror leaning where the receptionist had stood. And in it, Min saw himself. But his reflection was smiling. And he wasn't. The cold room. Min had always wanted to be a doctor. He never thought that path would take him to a morgue at 2 a.m. As a medical intern at St. Anselm Hospital, he was assigned night shifts every third week, rotating between the emergency room, the ICU, and, for unlucky interns, the basement morgue, which they called the cold room. It was his first time alone there. The mortuary was at the far end of a concrete corridor, lit by buzzing fluorescent lights. The elevator groaned as it took him down, and as soon as the door slid open, a wave of cold air met him. Dry, metallic, and heavy, like breathing inside a refrigerator full of rust. The room itself was spotless. Steel drawers lined the walls, each labeled with a tag number. A gurney stood in the center. Against the wall, a metal sink and tools were neatly arranged. Min checked the clipboard. Body number 36, male, unknown, found in alley, autopsy scheduled 3:30 a.m. Simple enough. He pulled out the drawer. The corpse was pale and rigid, eyes still slightly open, mouth half ajar. Something about it felt unfinished. Min carefully began preparing his tools. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then went out. Complete darkness. Min froze. Then came the sound. Clack, 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 slow, hollow. Footsteps. He couldn't see a thing. The emergency light should have kicked in, but it didn't. He whispered, "Hello? Security?" No answer. Only more footsteps. Closer. Now behind him. He turned and saw nothing. Then the lights returned with a harsh buzz. The drawer next to him, drawer number 37, was open, but it was supposed to be empty. Inside lay another body, a woman. Her face was turned toward the wall, hair matted to her cheeks. Min stared. There was no tag, no paperwork. He stepped closer and reached out to check for identification. Her hand twitched. He jumped back, nearly slipping. Her fingers curled slowly, unnaturally, then froze. Min ran to the hallway phone and called the security desk. No answer. He returned to the body. The woman was smiling now. Just a small, knowing smirk. Her eyes were still closed. Heart pounding, Min grabbed his phone and took a picture, to prove it later, if nothing else. When he looked at the screen, his breath caught. In the photo, the woman was sitting up, staring directly into the lens. Her eyes black, lips stretched impossibly wide. He looked back at the body, still lying down, eyes closed, smile gone. He deleted the photo immediately and slammed the drawer shut. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back. He turned on his phone flashlight. A low hum filled the air, like a generator failing. Then, voices from the drawers. Whispers. "Help me. She's here. It hurts." Min backed into a corner, flashlight shaking. The gurney in the center of the room moved. It rolled 2 inches, then stopped. The faucet turned on. Water trickled, then rushed. Min darted forward and shut it off. When he looked into the steel sink, he gasped. Teeth. The sink was full of human teeth, wet, fresh, as if pulled. His phone slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. Suddenly, from behind, metal slammed. One of the drawers flew open with force, its corpse thudding halfway out. It was the woman again. Only now her eyes were open, and she was grinning. A whisper echoed in the room. "You took my picture." Min stumbled back. The drawer beside her opened too. Then another. One by one, the cold chambers slid out, revealing corpses, some missing limbs, some headless, but all slowly turning toward him. He turned and ran. But the exit door was gone. In its place, only smooth wall. He screamed, pounded the wall, turned back, and the entire room was empty again. The gurney, the bodies, gone. Only the lights above, now pulsing faintly red, and the sink, still full of teeth. In the silence, he heard the phone on the wall ringing. He approached, hand trembling, and picked up. A woman's voice whispered, "Look behind you." He turned. The woman was standing inches away, not in the drawer, not lying down, standing, face cracked, skin flaking like burnt paper. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide, and from that black void, dozens of teeth spilled out across the floor. Everything went black. Min was found the next morning, unconscious on the floor, surrounded by overturned drawers. The sink was clean, the corpses untouched. When questioned, he said nothing. He didn't speak for 3 weeks. Later, a nurse checked his phone out of curiosity. There were no photos, just one saved audio file, a recording made at 2:44 a.m. with nothing but faint breathing. Then, at the very end, whispered right into the microphone, "You shouldn't have looked at her."